it's a joke. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess like I love.
Are you gonna go to Finn on the 31st?
Is that the reading that's gonna be here?
I think so, yeah. I booked this and then I was like, oh shoot, I didn't check if there was a Mud Hens game. And I did at the time. It was like at 10. I think this will be okay. Yeah. This is great. Thanks, man.
You want it up a little bit? What do you guys think?
How does it sound down there?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds a little quiet.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, we're not gonna be yelling into this microphone.
I'm
Anyway,
just do 10%. That's just a little bit.
we'll just be up here shouting.
Yes.
And then they were going to pay me $9.05 credit hour for the thing. I'm like,
Yeah, why are they skimping on
yeah. So I just said no, I'm not interested.
That's good
And
sugar.
taught down at ONU.
But did you say you were teaching like poetry though in there, or?
No, just comp and business writing.
Oh wow,
That was rough, man.
I've never taught a business. I mean, dude, that's all I do is that job. But.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you never, so you didn't teach anything at the PT then?
No, I didn't see where to apply for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 hours, right?
Was it 2? It wasn't bad. I mean, it's not bad at all.
I abandoned you.
Just me.
Yeah.
So quick to it.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's
Oh,
like,
that's Yiddish
let me get
humor.
this
I
on
know
camera.
this.
What is this humor? I know, how you been? Leave during my thing and yeah, that was such a surreal moment because they read it, talked about it. Yeah, we write it differently.
We do talk a lot about like repetition. Like, so you have a number. There's at least 3 like Pavilion Brown.
There's 3 of those, yeah.
It's like we talk about like I signed. They have a couple books that like do the same.
So they did good work.
You know, yeah. Well, they did all right.
So this is fun, being here for Tyler's book launch. I got the special table so I can film all this, so this is very fun.
Seemed to molt until it took on the color of a horse after heavy rain, and then dust. And then it wasn't really the beginning, was it? Because the imp grass had been growing up through soil all along. And one crow mocked the song of a jay, who mocked the song of a sparrow, who mocked a gull, who flew over the trees and saw nothing but its own stiff pinions in the muted bark of the pines there, standing on their carpets of fallen needles, in a silence that goes all the way back to the beginning. Yes, the beginning. Okay, so our first reader is going to be, thank you. Our first reader will be Adam J. Gellings. He is the author of the poetry collection Little Palace, and his poems have appeared in the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, Copper Nickel, Southern Humanities Review, Willow Springs, and elsewhere. He lives in Columbus, Ohio, and teaches at the Low Residency MFA program at Ashland University. Please give it up for Adam.
I brought that up myself just so I can have a little stool for my drink. Thanks everyone for coming out. This is a great crowd. And first of all, congratulations to Tyler on the release of his new book. Yeah. The Weight of Drought, available for purchase over on that table over there, along with all of our books. I first met Tyler in, gosh, I guess it was 2022. We're press mates at Stephen F. Austin State University Press, and bless you. I had a book launch there, and had reached out to Tyler via Twitter to see if he would join me for the launch, just having known that we were press mates. I just was talking to Tyler today. I teach in the low-res MFA program at Ashland University, and I still teach Tyler's book like every semester because it is a great book, first of all, but it's also just a great first book about grief, relationships, landscape, and the students really appreciate that, I think. So congrats, Tyler. I'm gonna read just a few poems from My book, Little Palace, also available for purchase over there. Please buy all of them. I don't really want to go back home with a box full of books. We can negotiate a price. It seems fair. I'll read a few poems from Little Palace, and then just a few kind of newer poems from a manuscript in progress. My collection, Little Palace, was written during some summers in Paris, the one in France. I run some poetry writing workshops there, and so this book is just kind of based off acrostic poems, relationships, all those like poetic things. So I'll read a few poems from that first. This poem is called Prompt. Write a poem about a character who goes for a walk at the beginning of autumn. Make it a clear afternoon. Have this character walk 12 blocks, 1 line per block. Let his eyes describe each object he passes. Show your readers what he has gained or lost along the way. Let his mind wander as quickly as his feet. A forgotten train in which people are still traveling, a sigh passing, a door that never closes. Remember, show your readers, don't tell. Hold still as you try your hand describing the prints of famous watercolors plastered to the bus stop, the Ferris wheel under construction, the face of the August clown gesturing at the camera. Match it, color for color. Consider the little leaves. Consider the wind so gentle. Consider its early autumn song. Consider adding a quote from Cocteau as an epigraph. Let your pen slip. Let it sink in to where the sun is very strong and where the shadows very pale. Lengthen. Vanish them. Act as though your character recognizes the gentleman sitting alone on a bench on the quay of the Seine, tossing fresh bread to a swan. Have the man use the phrase, "After me, the flood." Give him a name. Take a deep breath. Start each line off with, because. I'll just kind of run through these, and if there's something I think you like really need to know about them, I'll give it a little prelude. Fillet. From the base of my chin down to pectoral fin, I am opened into by the tip of the blade. Sequin flecks, sharpening stone, shaved pieces of cobalt and silver. The fat hands of the monger taking my last bubbles of breath. That feeling of a left hand cupping, cracking my cavity disappears. I'm good for you. I'd even cross the salty pinks and reds of an ocean to find you. Life was so simple. Now, in the open air, on the warm white surface of the operating table, I look confused. My heart, like an old snail, is not the same heart it once was. A shell of myself, my eyes, my open mouth, now just a body of light left on the table. Underneath it all, the only 4 cats in town, bobbing, circling, chasing their shadows. I'll read just a little bit of a longer piece called Baguettes, which was kind of written in reflection of my time working at an Italian restaurant in Columbus when I was in my 20s, and then just kind of cooking and baking something similar from my time in Paris. Baguettes. Back at the flat on Rue des Tournelles, I place bread, flour, and salt on the counter, spool a little well with my finger and crumble yeast into its center slowly. I pour lukewarm water into the well, watching the yeast dissolve, adding flour until the dough becomes smooth and stretchy. Push, push with the heel of my hand, folding it back into itself, folding it back into itself, until it bounces and shines, bounces and shines. When I was 22, I dropped out of school to begin cooking in an Italian restaurant with my best friend, Morgan. The bread baker was a good friend of ours. His name was Jake. I was asleep the night he took his own life with a single shot from a 12 gauge in a hotel near Hilltop. He was 25. The next morning, the owner of the restaurant asked if Morgan and I wouldn't mind taking over bread baking and pasta making, despite the two of us having no prior experience. There are only 4 ingredients in a baguette: flour, water, fresh yeast, salt. An actual law in France stipulates that a baguette will not legally be acknowledged as a baguette unless it contains these 4 ingredients. Around the time of King Louis XIV, baguettes were wide and clunky, rising on thick decks of steam ovens, often reaching a yard or 2 in length. Not until 1920, when a new law prevented bakers from working before 4 a.m., thus making it impossible for a large, round loaf to be ready in time for breakfast, did the baguette become the long, slim loaf we see sticking out from grocery bags, backpacks, or tucked under arms, hurrying home. Each morning, Morgan and I would arrive at around 7 a.m. to start prepping the dough. The room was small, the restaurant was dark and quiet, except for the steady hum of the mixer, its wire whip fishtailing in the large stainless steel bowl. Between him and I, 60 loaves per day, plus a tray of focaccia and a medley of pasta and noodles. The smell of semolina, rosemary potato, honey wheat, or simple round pagnata country bread were ours to choose. After letting the dough sit for half an hour, I give it a body, gently at first, cheekbones with my thumb and index finger pressing its round waistline, sculpted pale beneath my skin, satiny dusts of flour to my hands when they start to stick, pounding hard to reshape its center against the snowy counter until its figure is full. I'm relentless, kneading and stretching inside out each time it reaches for its perfect bloom. Then I divide the dough into 4 light, playful globes and switch on the oven. As the seconds pass, I shape them into leg bones, carefully, with the undersurface of my shadow hand, placing them on top of the cooking tray to rest and rise. We called it the bread room. We plugged in our iPods. We cracked eggs. We mixed dough. We cut strips of pasta. We talked with the staff that dropped in. We wondered what the last song was Jake listened to. We wondered what was on TV when the trigger pulled. We wondered if his parents knew about his lover. We wondered who the last person was he talked to. We wondered. We said as much as we knew. We said as far as we knew. We waited. We stacked trays on a rack. We swept the floor. We got the lights. We closed the door. 1. When the oven has reached 250 degrees Celsius and the dough has doubled in size, the scarification process begins. 2. Slash a slight angle about 1/4 of an inch deep towards the top of the loaf. 3. Now slash to the right of the first cut, and so on, down to the bottom of the dough. 4. The overlapping slashes will expand, opening the shape of the bread in its early stages of baking. 5. Slip a handful of ice cubes into the bottom of the small oven and place the baguettes on the middle rack. The ice creates steam for the loaf to develop a golden, shiny crust. After a few years at the Italian place, after I had left and went to manage the kitchen at a lousy chain restaurant, after the dough was flown in frozen each morning, after 2 years there, after I decided it was probably time to go back to school, after the joy of baking lost its brightness with each passing day, after I had weathered out completely. I keep an eye moving until they are ready to come into the world, a gentle tap-tap on the bronze blush of their bellies, hollow, airy, the crackling of cooling bread being ripped apart. Now it is night here. I stare out from one of the 2 small windows directly above the sink. In my 3rd-story flat around the corner from Place de Vosges, I watch as a woman dressed in all white, glacé gloves, handbag, and her young son walk a dog so small it could fit between the threads of my pocket. Today, for a moment, it felt like I was back in the bread room. So I take a picture with my phone of their thin profiles and send it to Morgan, living in London now. I title the message something witty, "Still got it." It takes a few minutes, but he responds with an image of his own, and with it a message that leads me to pull out one of the grainy wood chairs from beneath the dining room table and sit down. I made a sourdough starter over the weekend and made this today. It's my first loaf in years. I read it over and over. I'll switch over and just read a handful of poems from a new manuscript I'm working on, also like sort of about food, called Blue City. And if you hear the word blue a lot, just kind of either as a descriptor, as a color, anything like that, it's intentional. But I'll just read a few of these from this working manuscript. This first poem is for a friend of mine who passed away, I guess it was in November, a colleague that taught with me at Columbus College of Art and Design who was battling a long illness. And the title also serves as the first line of the poem. Anna tells me from across the table, they found a mass about the size of this scone, half smirk, the half white of her cigarette asleep in the powdery remains. The words, there is hope, then the depths in which we can survive is astonishing. I agree, and I tell her that in 50 years life will only exist at night. There will be fear our eyes will never adjust to. In this future, I wouldn't have been able to take the photo of my dad in his rain gear, boat hat, forest green glimpse of a grin stashed underneath its brim, hands at his side. A no-name lake sulks in the boundary waters, buried beneath fog. It must be morning. Our first and only scout trip together before his diagnosis. I am barreling towards 18. Even now I can hear him say, look at this, isn't it beautiful? And it is. And 20 years later, I'm reminded of how my friend Tom, on that same trip, not more than 14 at the time, would come home one day from deployment, suddenly unfamiliar. And after a few months, if I had known, would I have read his name in memoriam in our alumni magazine? A comment from someone immortalizing him in black ink as always laughing, funny, caring, an all-around good dude. And I say out loud to no one, yes, that is exactly how I remember him. How I remember all of us, staying up late around the campfire, pieces put back together, faces turned away from the shadows, tracing all of the light that never comes back. Sort of a dramatic drink there. This poem's called The Self, and it's after a poem with the same title by a poet named Adam Zagajewski, whose last name I've been mispronouncing for about 10 years until I just learned it. It's called The Self. It always knocks before entering. It is the deer caught in the halos of nicotine yellow, crushed into a mural of moonshot along the highway. In this town, it is worth its weight in gold. It is believed when you least expect it. It is the quiet part of the day the self has come to fear the most. Come see its body language droop to the ground, humbled, wobbly, but mostly intact. The self is hungry for the sound of running water, that of sky and sea, rain squeezed and pressed. It is the paper boat on the ocean floor. It is this tree's root and that bushel of sagebrush, fevered few and far between. But here, there is no gold in the ground. It is the end of things that the self waits for, the passage of hour, of day, of week, month, year. Even the tentacles of its own inner monologue want guillotine from its own dark self. It hangs from its body like the legs of a spider, living in glances. It is either a species too difficult to spot, or I've just kept my distance. On the mountain, we have this saying that when the heartbeat of the self reaches for the tip of your mulberry crown with its hickory thorn, hold still, don't feel alone. I am with you. I will be anything for you. Misfire. My one good eye continues to have the last laugh. It has no other company. Once considered a perceived threat, it has since been removed off the X, but from time to time still levels with the clumsy cataracts of the widowed keymaker. My one good eye follows the crow's feet just below the arc of brow line, where it has learned to sit with its nose to the skin of the earth and really listen. It found a penchant for archaeological fragments, fish bones, polished groin, the strident cry of the cock. My one good eye was blinded by a shard of light just waiting to be gulped. It helped uncover a grid of inanimate objects, furniture, toys, shoes, piled within swinging distance of the weed-covered cul-de-sac. My one good eye, in the name of bestiary, outside the grounds of the charity shop, found its unyieldingly dark silhouette like a sleuth fixed under glass, and now lives in fear of jumping the gun. Again, my one good eye is buried under water. It lies in ambush in a captivating oceanic aesthetic, 70% isopropyl alcohol dyed blue. It'll make you at the jetty without inference or context from a reliable source. My one good eye isn't much of a cook. It knows how to chop and ordain in equal parts, but always over-cherries the fruit cocktail by at least 2/3. My one good eye is nearly translucent. Its tiny organs seem to float in a jello-like salad. Its muscles are see-through. We've talked about how to fork around the parts of the dish that the birds have touched. If my one good eye sees his shadow, then it's an early spring. There are no coincidences, comrade. I confess, my one good eye ransacked your bed of peonies for the second time this year. It longs to ruin what you have worked so hard to achieve. It's triggered when pushed into a corner, a pattern likely carried over from childhood, when it felt the glue of the bandaged other begin to delicately unravel. In humidity, when bruise turns to bounty, my one good eye stays awake at night as if it owned the placid orbits of the void. Someone took a picture of my one good eye next to a woman lighting up a cigarette from a stove whose chimney shot through the roof of the brothel like a bronze-painted marine cannon, or an outstretched arm shaking the dice across the overturned soap crate into brittle stars. This is your 2-poem warning. They don't get any happier, I'm sorry. This particular poem is about, my dad has Parkinson's and dementia, and my mom passed away in January of 23. And so in a situation where like you're caretaking for a parent that has issues with memory or dementia specifically, excuse me, a death like that can be like a blessing and a curse, because he still asks about her constantly. So it's like this way of kind of like keeping her memory alive, even though he knows that she's passed. But he always will be like, "Did you run that by Mom?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." So it's like less correcting and more just like going along with the narrative, which is nice. This is called "He Misses Her Like Trying to Catch the Rain with a Net." He misses her from one side of the room to the other. In his thickened drink, in his gravelly cough, a neighbor found him missing her 2 blocks down the street, holding an empty tube of toothpaste, coat and hat on all by himself, comb to his hair. He misses her block after block. He looks for her in his nephrostomy bag. He looks for her in his catheter. He misses her in each pill he takes. 5 in the morning, swallow. 7 in the afternoon, swallow. Chin down, cough, clear your throat, swallow. 4 at night, swallow. 2 at 2 in the morning, chin down, cough, clear your throat. He misses her in the one he dropped beneath his chair, swallow. He looks for her on the floor. What are you doing down there? He says he's just dusting with his eyebrows. He looks for her in the dust of his eyebrows. He misses her in the fresh cut above his right eye, how it glistened southward into several arms. He misses her on the phone. "Babe," he says. "Babe, are you there?" But no one's charged his phone for weeks. He misses her in the "God damn it," I say out loud out of frustration when he spills the Mexican takeover all over his lap. "Use your fork." But he misses a mouth wide open. He misses her in dreams. You were there too. He tells me I was taller, that I came in through the window to check on him. He waves goodbye when I ask if he wants me to stay a little longer. He misses her on the ride to the dentist. He misses her in the burnt orange sofa and mustard walls of the waiting room. He tries to schedule her 6 months out. He's so sweet, the lady tells me as we are leaving. He misses her in every speed bump and monstrous pothole. He misses her in the puddle of urine around his toilet. He misses her in the depths of the storm that's becoming a cyclone, and in the scenes of chaos after the drug trafficker's son is arrested. He misses her in one place, he searches for her in another. He is never frustrated. He is always encouraged. He misses her like there's still more work to be done. In the paint curling off his nightstand and the duct tape around his lampshade, he misses her in his prayer before bedtime, the way he holds her picture with both hands, pressure pooling between his thumbs, asking us softly, what was her name? And this is the last one. Thank you again to Tyler and Dustin for being a part of this, and for all of you for being a part of this as well. This is called We Move On Only to Come Back. To push through, to calm, to guide, to render, to feel conflicted, to think fondly of the past, to wake up whatever awaits us from underneath the bed, a window to the storm, every half-truth of morning worth repeating each morning, the inside side of a rough kiss, long sleeve of flannel that hides the name of the sailor tattooed on her arm, mosquito-sized droplets of rain, fire off the river, curlicues of blue above the dryness, plum trees when the weather turns, the man next door beating his wife alone in the mirror. What's written on the door of the bathroom stall come to life. From this angle, nothing but a dirty floor, crumpled receipt from the washateria held up to the light, teeth marks in the satin blouse on the sawhorse, black dancing shoes in the doorway, the fern, Winnebago, forward march to find wilderness, scat on a stick, the head of the stag draped in finery, specks of blood in the boot of the car. Let's call it noon in a gaggle of wet grasses. Two brothers skipping stones across the inlet. Tall one says to the other, no dummy, like this. Thank you.
House. In 2019, The Root named Dustin one of 9 Black poets working in academic, cultural, and government institutions committed to elevating and preserving the poetry art form. He is an assistant professor in the Department of English and Literature at the University of Toledo, where he teaches creative writing. Please give it up for Dustin.
Hi, everybody. Well, it's fun to be here to read with Adam and Tyler. Tyler and I became friends, not really on accident, but it was one of the pleasant surprises I've had since I've been here. I'm working through my 3rd year in Toledo. I was hired at the University of Toledo in 2022, and after doing a reading at Bowling Green State University, I think of spring of 2023, Tyler and I became friends. I don't exactly remember how we became friends, but we're dear friends, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm gonna read 8 poems, so if you'd like to count them. This first poem is called Beacon. The first time I made my brother cry with words felt like a victory. I understood he was human, but tears seemed out of reach. I'd already made him cry by hitting him with my hands or heavy objects, but I was always the one crying at the end of his verbal volleys. Half because of what he said, half because he did it for amusement or out of anger. And being younger, I was sure I wouldn't find words big or cutting enough to hurt, even knowing sometimes I thought he was stupid. He'd gained weight that year. He started singing socially. I knew I could cut an opening if I lunged, if at once I attacked him from both directions. We were in front of his friend when he started crying. What had I said? I thought, how could he have let his friend see that? Everyone always expected him to win, and I, having won, having gotten past the newness, wanted to win again. How even had we gotten, following that trend over the years? At what point in the world had we become infected? The truth is, dropped into the middle of the ocean, I'm sure we would both drown. No one would blame us for dying, for not being found, for not being able to save the other. Same goes for being trapped under a pile of rubble, of burning black in a blocked and blazing building, though it might be noted if our bodies were found huddled together, if the space between us indicated an insistence to a painful end, refusing to be separated. Brother, haven't we done the best we can over time for knowing better? Both wanting to live, we might have killed each other for being dressed in armor and wielding weapons in a closed stadium. Fighting with all we had, convinced only one of us could. Or cannibalizing the other on some island when the other died from hunger or at the start of some sickness, for having no medicine. I'd like to think these days we just throw our hands up, knowing life is the most wonderful and not at all worth fighting the other to keep it. Brother, we're not close enough these days to prove it to each other. Tell me we trust each other enough to risk it. This poem's called Whirling. I swallowed a firestorm walking through hell. I'd spent so much time wandering the flames, my skull's sharp lines protruded, my jaw dislodged itself, made an oval at a slant for that whirling to work in. The dark inside writhed around it, each sliver folded in favor of that violent light. Then I realized I hated my brother had become the thing to find. That perhaps the storm was one I conjured to survive his finding, and that, if I ever found him again, ever allowed myself one word to that occasion, that violence might be all I had left to give him. Okay, I'm going to read one poem from this second book, A Family's a House. It's called Family Feuds. I can't brush them away. Like most things, I do what's necessary to win. It's so important. And sometimes I'm cruel. The words stream from my mouth as if no lips are in place to hold them. As if that opening is all gape and teeth. But every now and then, when I'm still active in the argument, something reminds me of all the things I hate most about me. How is it again I found me, attacking them? Another onslaught in all directions, its familiar origin. I'm frightened, but it doesn't stop me. For years, I was at the losing end of these fights. My family all there to see. Now I tell myself I'm the best at hurting people. I'm willing. I'm trying to be. I think there's something I want. I want this argument to tell me before it ends. Okay, so the rest of these poems are about friendship. And what's funny about friendship is that one of the things that I like to ask everybody every time I start reading from this book is, how many of you all have friends in here? See, we always get that reluctant participation with us like, oh geez, it's bleak out there. And for those of you who didn't raise your hands, there's still time. This poem reminds me of Adam's poem, something about like, it always knocks before entering. This poem is called Awash After Entering. When my friend comes over, he sticks his head in my refrigerator and laughs. For what his eyes find inside, I'm called names I don't like. Dogs do something similar. Their eyes look in, then back to their owners, without words to say. When my friend closes his claw around the door handle and pulls, his pulling makes the fridge a book. His jeers make the book a diary. I wouldn't befriend a pet that could do that, but I'd feed one. So what does my friend become when he feeds himself the neglected carrots, my favorite, chocolate and chicken? I was taught never enter a fridge without asking. To the day, I don't enter without washing my hands. My friend has entered as if he's always been wanted, as if he could never be dirty. You can only be so angry at a pet, but the reality is, I don't have any. And though I've invited my friend over, oh God, look at what I've let in. Is anyone named Michael in here? Oh my God. Okay, that's great. I'm gonna skip this next poem. And when I get to the end of this, or the penultimate poem in this, I'm gonna read this poem directly to you. Oh, that's never happened before. I'm so excited. Okay. All right. But before we get there, this poem is called Hard to Read. I've gotten this complaint from friendlies before. It doesn't matter, we've enjoyed each other's company for months prior. They want to link that enjoyment to something. They think they can riddle why we get on so well by knowing who I'm dating, how I feel about my mother, if I've ever been knocked in the eye. But as much as I'm annoyed by them, I'm more offended by you, friend, at how we've grown into each other over the years. That despite, I've given you everything you said you needed, gone against myself to answer your questions, even when you've repeated them. Your ill listening and loose mouth have made trouble for me. You've made data of the things I do harm to myself to talk to you about, under the guise it brings us closer. Or before we grew into each other around our commonalities, you've insisted to insert a wedge of difference. You task me to help you understand. Now people I've never met in your life know everything about me, and yet their only insight is the small force they need to apply to obtain your secrets. I've always felt what reveals itself should be natural through the course of due time. Our friendship is not our utility to each other. Our friendship may shorten my life. Okay, 2 more poems. A scurry. I'm afraid my needs have started to scurry from the corners. They rattle the house when I turn the lights out. They rush past the periphery in sunlight. What was that? A friend asks, as if briefly my torso had begun to slip from my legs, how yolks sometimes run from their whites when held to flame. I could sever myself to chew the needs. I could stand straighter, letting them draw from my friends every now and then. But what good would I be? You're so chill, they say. You're usually so laid back. What's happening? All right, and this last poem is called The Left World. So, Michael, thanks for entertaining this. The Left World, for Michael. It was the sun that rose us each morning, those few days on the mountain, wasn't it? Me to walk the dew-locked grass, that huge field you preferred to run, first thing out the door, the little house. Remember, Michael? We'd meet on the sidewalk to head to breakfast. The only 2 of us up that early. First witness to what the night left. Me always looking down, you always looking in front, missed the crimson specks in a row on the cement I couldn't help but think was blood I'd follow to a morbid, magic world to swim, then drown in. Michael, I turned to you, said, there's so much blood. There's just so much blood everywhere, we said. At sunset, The clouds fell early, thick on themselves to the ground. And like you, Michael, I'd always wanted to walk the sky. So we went. The mosquitoes inside were giant. We were so unnerved, we itched twice as much in our long sleeves, the number of their stealthy bites. Why had we been laughing, Michael? On the ground, there's everything to face and the world that's left. The world we left in the clearing behind us. And I get it, Michael. You have more than yourself to think about. But even so, remember when I said, look at how the people enter gently here and are swaddled softly off the horizon. We confessed. We could just make off into all that fog and disappear. Thank you.
I would like to remind everyone that all of our readers' books are available for purchase right over there at that table. And after Tyler reads, we will be holding an open mic session. I will be sitting right over there during Tyler's reading if anyone would like to sign up for the open mic, and I encourage all of you to do so. Didn't have my paper ready. Tyler Michael Jacobs.
Look at this. I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Dustin, for agreeing to be here and read tonight. Thank you to everyone who came out. This is such a cool turnout. I was so worried all day. I'm like, I really hope there are more than 3 people here. And you didn't disappoint, so thank you so much. So I'm going to read some poems, about 10 minutes or so, and then we can celebrate together and talk about literature or the weather. Chance of rain is likely. All right, so the first poem I'm going to read is called Still Life, and this is kind of a series of poems that goes throughout the book. And they appear in different form and different, energies, I guess. That'd be a good way to say it. Energies throughout this book. Still life. I stretch my arms out toward the empty pasture I keep returning to, where the paw of hoof striking soil and the piss striking soil and the ripping of ryegrass by rippling bodies once filled this grazing. The thunder that filled my reaching no longer opens out across the worn-down ryegrass. The trees have since winnowed their leaves, and February rain falls right through them, soaking soil. Remember the moonlight and the ryegrass and the rabbits in the ryegrass, and the scars of moonlight striking soil? I do. I can't tell if what I reach toward reaches back, but everything is reaching. When I tell you I miss horses, I'm saying I miss something to hold. The weight of drought. A life without trees saddens me. When a cloud drifts off into land, it's saying goodbye. Your house just a house when I'm able to imagine a life I can live without you. Somewhere I once was a body, my body, blessings caught in teeth, sliver words in morning light. There was just enough blushing to call it joy. No one can hold you the way the earth does. It took me a lifetime to learn that kind of holding is a form of begging. A cloud exhales into tomorrow. Look, I watch light quiver the street before it begins spitting. You extend one hand wherever you are, expecting to catch rain. There are so many other stories to tell. When you complained about the onset of cold and the gravestones kept singing the virginity of the dead, both must be made, both must be the same thing. My feet still try to find yours in the middle of the night to fall back to sleep. Fingers once braided together as if to say, I'm here. Blossoming rosebuds and palms. It's that cold emptiness of morning in which I wake. A moth tapping the screen and the smell of the last of autumn through the open window in my apartment. I look at my feet, wanting something warm to press them against. I'm tired of this awful color. The treetops are sweeping the sky today. It's that line between birth and dying. Oh, trees and stale light, forgive me for not noticing it's the shadows that move, and with nowhere to rest ahead. Forgive me. A dilated pupil carries the same weight the sky holds up from crashing into us. Even the light we see doesn't stop there, echoing multitudes of never-ending pasts. When a star explodes, a lifetime we imagine forms in the eye, if it wasn't already alive and breathing like universes still as grains of sand. What we found didn't last. Adorning the table. The peach and the flower both indulge this table, each a different kind of hunger. One carries the life in which you exist, the other carries the life in which you don't. Every table you've ever sat at has held something. Like obsession, I sit opposite you. Sometimes it's the table we set. Sometimes it's not the table we wish we had. Like this one, on which these flowers keep. Or this one, on which these peaches keep. Here, obsession lies in the centerpiece. Each head turned slightly toward the eye, brushed with light, and now. What was it I was saying about hunger? This too was real, I promise. We hear the distance sundering. I wanted to tell you, I'm trying to feel this too. Here where the fire was, I could feel what the fire made. How many lives we had to live to get to this one. I walked over and walked over, a field wanting, sprouting like a field again. I knew this then when the clouds became storm clouds. And there you were, leading me to a horse refusing the bit, or to a horse with a bit full mouth. Either way, a horse sounding like a horse. The dry, soft dirt getting wetter. Even God must search for meaning. Even God must search for meaning, watching the moon struck dead, and what December has done to the body's dark eaves. If ever they were blossomless, how vivid the dead burden with grease sounds only their bodies make heard. The sound of the distance is the sound of that bellowing. The body carries the body's pain. Is it the soul that utters the light into plumes? Acceptance is a form of allowance. Swelling with snow that never falls, the sky covets what it can't hold, then waits. How can I not look up and see a surface, a history of familiar things? Hatchlings. The mother perches next to the... I'm going to start over. Hatchlings. This is a poem so good it starts twice. Hatchlings. The mother perches next to her fallen and empty nest. On the ground, fluid spills from the broken shells. Translucent, unformed bodies scatter onto the lawn. A heaviness overtakes the wind today. Her grief sounds trill, as any mother's would. So this next poem was inspired by Larissa Sporlik from a thesis class in grad school. She said I need a poem looking at the dirt, which I'm not going to read that poem. You can discover that poem if you read the book. But she also said I need a poem at dirt level. So here's my dirt level poem. On God. Wind ruins everything like it does by spitting sand in your eye. In full blossom. The rosette of a musk thistle submits itself toward the earth. As I look at my pierced and swollen, dust-caked hand, I fear I've never known love. My dead father plants pines in a field I once ran through out of love, or some other mysterious thing. Do I make this memory of cloth spit, or bird nest, or cloud street, as if bearing pain might make of itself a festival of years? The Nebraska conehead pierces tonight's room. I wish you could hear them as I do. So I'm going to read two more poems, the infamous two-poem warning, as Adam said earlier. Morning coffee. The silhouette of the dead fly against the backdrop of window pane and blush of cold blue air dangles in silk. Perhaps the knotted thread of a sweater brushing sky, as if waiting to be ripped from the hem of window frame. Like the fly in his own fragile waits to extend toward eventual. A hand on the cheek gestures the body. An act opposite appetite. It wasn't until later that the spider, like the leaves curtailing from the trees outside the window, curled and brittle on the floor in countless moments of silence. Unlike the sky, which closes into itself, took the dead blossom of it, ever narrowing. In a field of soft thuds, you find a grasshopper pinned in between the tines of the berry picker. When you remove it, a brown liquid drips from its mouth, as far from sweet today as it ever had been. And you return to winnowing the leaves and stems from the buckets of foraged fruit. You sift through sweet fern, bastard toad flax, and sand cherry to scrub yourself raw of the endless plumes of ash on your hands. What you love takes shape inside your chest, a clattering like fresh budding leaves that blossoms into mouth. But sometimes you realize a prayer is just that, a prayer. When splashing your exposed back from the well makes your cupped hands brim with water, you drink as droplets slip past, striking your boots, echoing grasshopper. And then this life was nothing that surprised you. Thank you. And thank you to Earnest Brewworks for allowing us to have this event here. Tip your bartender.
Will all BG alumni please come to the stage? Danielle would like to take a picture.
Right? PayPal's through M is in Michael. And then Jacobs.